Is Jane? Oh, sorry.
I was gonna ask about, didn't you prefer it like getting tilted?
Yeah, it's because I can't read the comments over there.
Is Jane?
Is Jane coming?
No. I can do it later. Aisha.
Oh.
Aisha's on Aisha, but not Shane. But that's his policy person. Okay.
We heard from Missy. Oh, shoot. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hi, good afternoon. We are calling to order at 3:33. I'll introduce myself. I am Lynn Gomez. I'm the chair for this committee. And I need to go over housekeeping rules. According to open meeting law. Sorry, I thought somebody said something. According to open meeting law, any technical difficulties, meaning that we are no longer audible or visible to the public. If that occurs, the meeting shall be recessed until the problem is resolved. If the problem cannot be resolved within 1 hour, then the meeting must be adjourned. The meeting will be recorded. ASL interpreters and live and manual CART services are being provided during this meeting. Public comments will be accepted during the appropriate time on the agenda. If you have a comment to make, please place your name in the chat box and we will call upon you. And if you're a visitor to the meeting, please make sure that your microphone is on mute and that your camera is turned off. And also, if you would go in the chat and let us know where you're from. Tell us your name and where you're from. It's more of a curiosity thing just to see where people are joining us from around the state. We're now going to do roll call. Denise Crochet.
Present.
And thank you. Remember, I need to hear your voice. Earl Hardin.
Here.
Leslie Knowles.
Here.
Melissa Welch. She is absent. She is ill. Natasha Amami.
I'm present.
And Walker Estes.
Here.
Okay. Can I propose to change the order of the agenda?
I do believe so.
Okay. So I would like to, our agenda says that Roman numeral 3 is approval of the minutes. I'd like to make it approval of the agenda. And then Roman numeral 4 is now approval of the minutes. Okay, we will move to approval of, well, the new Roman numeral 3, which is approval of the October 18th agenda. That's today's agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Walker here, so moved.
I can second that.
And seconded by Earl. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none. It's weird with you over my shoulder. I have to keep looking back.
I'll tap you.
Okay, but I don't want to not include you, so I'll probably be doing that a bunch. All right, seeing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor, and now I have to do a roll call, and I have to hear your voice. Denise?
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Earl?
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Leslie? Aye. Walker?
Aye.
And Natasha? Aye. Okay, motion carries. We will move to Roman numeral 4, which is approval of the October 4th minutes. Let me find some notes that I have. Sorry, I understand this is loud if I'm moving papers. I don't have out what I need. Well, I may have left them on my desk. The notes from Shane. Oh, here they are. I do have them.
Question from Walker
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
about item 4. Do we need to move into committee as a whole? Committee of the whole?
Not for approval of the minutes, but what I wanted to talk about was at the last meeting, and all of y'all are being requested that at 6:15, you need to tell me that we need to leave committee of the whole. Because at the last meeting, as I got in my car, I went, oh, we did not do that. And we did not have a motion to approve everything that we had discussed at the last meeting. So we sought some advice on it. And according to Shane, it looked like we have 3 options. He says, some say that the action is complete, even though there was no motion that the outcome is what the members wanted. We could, option number 2, we could just move on and take no actions to raise the point that the motion to end the committee of the whole was not made and just accept the outcome. Or if we want to raise the item, it could be added as an agenda item to cure the action. I tend to want to go with option 3, to make a motion to approve what we did for several reasons. And then I'd like to hear what you all have to say. We were not unanimous on every point that we discussed at the last meeting. So I'm a little uncomfortable with just accepting the outcome as it was without having it documented. I don't know what all the regs and rules are for, state meetings and that kind of thing. It's cleaner. It's just cleaner if we go ahead and adopt or accept what we agreed to at the last meeting and have that recorded. So do y'all have any thoughts on how we handle accepting what we did at the last meeting, even though we come out of the committee of the whole? So your thoughts? Earl?
I'm fine with any of the options, but based on what you just said, 3 is fine because it's a little more thorough and there would be no questions left in my mind if we did it that way.
I concur.
Okay,
This is Leslie, as do I.
Walker, as do I.
And Natasha, I concur too.
so I'm still a little shaky on because we're on the part of the agenda for approving the minutes. Can we have another motion that's not approval of the minutes? It's just approval of what we discussed in the last meeting. Do we do it here or where I'm still a little shaky on the where.
This is Jan. I'm gonna think out loud for just a second, but so if the approval of the minutes is the approval of what is currently on this piece of paper, but if that's not accurate, then you could propose to not approve the minutes as written, and then they would need to be corrected at a later
Well, that's a
date.
separate issue. So we're gonna talk about that next. I'm talking
Oh.
about not doing the motion at the end of the meeting that accepted everything we discussed during our meeting. That motion. Where would we do that motion?
What would the motion be now, right now? Well, I mean, what would it be?
Just like the ones that we
To
usually do at the
review
end of,
like the others?
yeah, just say, someone would move that we would accept all of the.
That feels like it would need to be added as an agenda item. Because the minutes are these things right here. But
Right,
if you're talking about actions that occurred at the previous meeting, to me, you could just vote to add it as the first item of old business.
so do we need to go back to Roman numeral 3? And do the agenda and do an amendment to the agenda? Okay, see, that's where I was like, if we're doing another motion, how do you do 2 motions at the
Right.
minutes?
Yeah, no, because the
And
minutes
that
is
was my-
just this,
That
but
was my confusion. So we're gonna back up to Roman numeral 3. And we need a new agenda item is what it is. So I have so many papers out here. Let me find it.
Do we need a motion to make that new agenda item?
Yeah, it needs to be the new number 4. And then all of the other numbers get changed by 1, the next number. So I need to hear a motion that we amend the agenda for a new number 4, which would be approval of the changes discussed during the October 4th meeting.
I'll make that motion.
All right, that's Denise. Is there a second? And Leslie?
Second, Leslie.
Any discussion on the motion on the floor, which is to add in a new number 4? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor. Earl,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye, yes.
Leslie,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
and Natasha.
Aye.
Okay. And the motion carries, so the agenda has been adjusted. Now, the new number 4 is approval of the group decisions or the committee decisions discussed on October 4th. Do I hear?
I'm sorry, should the motion also include and a conclusion of the committee of the whole?
I'm confused about that too. I don't think we had to come out of it.
Okay.
We just didn't do it, and it's almost like you don't start over, but you just carry on.
Okay, okay.
So, any discussion on the motion, which is approval of the committee decisions made on October 4th? Okay, all in favor, Earl,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
and Natasha?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion carries. The new number 5 is approval of the October 4th minutes. Okay, we all got a copy of minutes for October 4th. There was work that was done by subcommittee members since October 4th. And when the document got lifted and put into the minutes, it includes proposals that are coming up for discussion today. And so we need the minutes that have been presented to us to have what we actually discussed in the meeting October 4th. And I would think it would be important to, especially since we had a couple of points that were not unanimous, to make sure that we indicate that those items were not agreed upon unanimously. So, I mean, thoughts on that? The issue is that we don't have minutes that we could vote on today because that's going to have to be included. You know, the way it was on October 4th. Not the way it is today, the way the document looks today.
Then can we table that approval of minutes? Is that allowable?
We could table it, but we don't have any subsequent meetings.
Until, I was gonna say, until adjustments and or corrections are made.
We can't vote on it via email, can we?
No. So the issue that I guess I'm understanding, this is Jana speaking, is that we don't really know what the corrections need to be, like right at this very second, to be able to make the corrections.
Right.
And that's going to take some time,
Right.
right? This is a bit of a conundrum. Conundrum.
May I ask if the transcript would be helpful?
Yes, that's what will have to be consulted. And could not be completed before we started the meeting today, so. And because we don't have another meeting scheduled, we complete our work today. We won't be back together to vote upon it.
I mean, so one solution, which is not ideal, I would imagine, would be to have a kind of a special meeting, super short, super sweet. get on a call, everybody together and formally do that at a date in the very near future. And that's kind of the only solution I'm coming up with at this point.
Would y'all be amenable to that?
Or could we somehow, I was thinking like, what about the
Mrs.
LCD?
Walker, it kind of depends on when the meeting is.
Yeah. But the LCD meeting is not, it's not the same people, so
All right.
can't vote there. It would need to be. Well, we need the corrections first, so, you know,
Yeah.
we'll probably need a day for that. But I guess just as soon as if people could just, you know, pick a 10-minute point in time to all come together and and then formally vote on it.
But is that another public meeting?
Well, yes, it just
Yes.
wouldn't last very long.
We'd have one agenda item. Well, we'd have,
But it would have to be advertised as a public meeting is what I'm saying,
yes,
published.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so we would need to have, we would need 24 hours in order to have it published prior to the meeting. The notice published prior to the meeting,
how many you said?
24.
24? We usually meet on Wednesdays. Let me just throw something out. What about next Wednesday, which would be, what is next Wednesday?
The 25th.
The 25th. Like,
So, but what does that mean? Aisha's coming on. What would that mean though for the recommendation you're making on Friday? If you, so, okay, well.
we would approve it today.
You'd approve it today, right? You
It's
just,
only
you
the
can't
minutes.
approve the minutes.
Right.
Today. Okay, thank you for
Right.
that clarification. You want to recognize?
Oh, Aisha, hi.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Aisha Omragar from the Bureau of Family Health. I'm the legislative coordinator. So I'm not a lawyer, but I'll do my best to give the recommendations that I know. So in order to approve the minutes, it would need to be a public meeting because that is something that's a voting action of the board. I know that's not ideal, like calling everyone back together for a quick meeting, but as far as open meetings law go, especially if corrections need to be made to the minutes. I would imagine that, like what Janice said, you would have to go ahead, make those corrections, and then pull everyone back together and then vote on the minutes. That's not something that could be done via email or electronically.
Okay, thank you, Aisha.
No problem.
So what about next Wednesday, the 25th?
Look at Earl's comment.
I don't see Earl.
His comment.
Oh, can we all sit at the same table at lunch at LRID? We can't nail it down then, but I would like to sit at the same table with all of y'all at LRID. That would be fun. Would next Wednesday work for everyone? And let's say 4 o'clock instead of 3:30. I know 3:30 is a little rushed for some people, including me, but
For me, this is Walker, yeah.
okay. So 4 o'clock on the 25th, and we can get all it set up and interpreters and all that, and that works for you too? Okay,
I cannot attend that day.
okay. We only have the one agenda item, well, other than roll call. And approval of the agenda.
I'm in another meeting at that time.
Okay. Are you okay with us going ahead and meeting on this item, or do you want us to post?
Absolutely. No, I mean, we have Melissa out today as an example. It's, you know, the business needs to move forward. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to have a meeting on, oh, not April, October 25th at 4 PM to just
From
to-
Walker.
consider the October 4th minutes? Walker, you moved?
I did, yes.
All right, and seconded by Leslie.
Leslie second.
Okay. Any other discussion? I think we're good. All in favor, Earl,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
and Natasha.
Aye.
Okay, it carries. Okay, so then. All right, that was Roman numeral 5. Do we have to say that we're tabling the minutes? Or just say it was postponed to October 25th?
Yeah.
Can we just announce?
Mhm.
Okay.
This is Jasmine. Lance, are we tabling or are we going to say it's been postponed?
We're gonna say postponed to 10:25.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, we are now on Roman numeral 6, which is public comment. Do we have any persons from the public who wish to comment?
This is Jasmine. I haven't received anything in advance and I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. Do we have to hold it for a minute or so?
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe.
In
remind
case
people to
somebody-
Put their names in the chat. That could be- See.
While we're waiting to see if there's anyone who wants to make a public comment, please remember, if you're not a committee member, to put your name and where you're from in the chat.
Yeah.
We have Delgado represented today. I see 3 so far.
Leslie brought her people.
And Earl, definitely, can we sit together at lunch at LRD?
I'd love to.
Wonderful. Okay, seeing no public comment, we're going to move to Roman numeral 7, which is old business. And the famous section 3, which we visit every meeting. Can we get the document up?
Does everyone see
Oh,
my
I'm sorry,
screen?
thank you. Okay, so we're going to look at section 3. Actually, we have notes up here we need to address.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to read if we had anything we needed to address right now.
Well, I don't know if you wanted to discuss the kind of the new structure on here, of, holding off some of these particular sections for a later date that aren't specific to education.
Yeah, we were just going to go ahead and launch into it that way and deal with those sections that were in red.
Okay.
If the others were going to be generalized across every every part of interpreting. So we're in section 3, which is the qualified interpreter standard requirements. There are a couple of suggested changes here. One is that the commission requires registration of interpreters to work in educational settings. There's a suggestion to remove that because that's basically going to be the commission requires registration of sign language interpreters to work in all settings. So it'll become a general statement over at probably under jurisdiction. Is that section 2? Yes.
Mhm.
So let's see, everybody.
Oh, it changes, yeah, when you share the screen.
Yeah. We're adjusting to make sure I can see you all. There you are. You are back. For me at least. So do I hear a motion that we move into committee of the whole? I think Earl raised his hand.
I'll make a
Earl
motion.
seconds. Is there a second? And Leslie seconds. Is there any discussion? And seeing none, we'll vote. Earl,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Natasha.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. And all of you at 6:15 need to tell me.
I'm gonna run it.
We need, somebody needs to set an alarm for 6:15. That it's like the hour is closing on us. Make the motion come out of committee of the whole. All right, oh,
Walker here. I'll be the timekeeper.
all right, thank you. Okay, we're looking at this first sentence here. Are y'all in agreement that this sentence comes out of this section and goes under section 2, which is jurisdiction?
Yes.
Yeah, here I need thumbs or, okay. Okay, we will move on. What's the next one? So this section C, number 2. There was discussion of this before being the national certifying body. And there was a suggestion to put RID back in there since we are listing all the other agencies. If we don't foresee that RID is ever going to change their name. Even though they have Castley conducting tests and taking care of that portion, the certificate is still issued by RID. And so it was suggested to put RID back in there rather than a generic term of national certifying body. Thoughts on that? Walker? Putting RID back?
Walker here. RID and is there another national something? Because I mean, I'd just like to have more options than only RID.
We were just renaming who the national certifying body is, just putting the proper name back in. Because we named BEI, we've named EIPA. So it's just naming RID. All those options are still there.
Ah, I see. So there are 3 options that we have. And in that case, why not name each of the 3?
Okay, so, and they are now. RID said national certifying body. And we, instead of just that generic name there, we want to put in the actual name, which is RID. And that's what we're talking about right now, just that one section. Do you see C2? Jasmine just highlighted it. You see the certifying body of interpreters is struck through. We're going to replace that with RID. You good with that? Walker's still thinking. I don't want to move on without it being clear.
Walker here. Well, I mean, I could be flexible about seeing, if we're seeing BEI and EIPA, then yeah, I think we can use RID. I just wanted to make sure we weren't limiting the options to only one.
Correct.
And maybe just remind him, this is Jana Walker at the top. It says applicants have to submit verification of one from each of the following categories. So everything listed under C is an option. You don't have to have each of them. You just have to have one of them.
Walker
Okay.
here, understood. That's okay then. Now, thumbs up.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Let's see the next comment. Okay, number 5 is new. And remember, this is for qualified. There are a couple of options that are in there for discussion. This would be for deaf interpreters. Either these are the tests that we know that are available in the interpreting world with either RID or BEI. And then what's proposed here is either level 4 or 5 intermediary issued by BEI. Thoughts or thumbs on these being the certifications that qualify you for a qualified certificate? See how many more times I get qualified in that sentence?
For the sake of the girls' conversation last week, which I missed, or 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, that I wasn't able to be here. I know that the previous meeting, there was some discussion about, for hearing interpreters, you have a couple of certification pathways, but then you also have the EIPA, which is not a certification, but an assessment. And my concern was having deaf interpreters, basically you're saying only a CDI is allowed to work under a qualified certificate. And there's no kind of an additional pathway for a deaf interpreter who is not yet nationally certified or certified by BEI. Was there any discussion about that of some that I would have maybe have missed this last meeting? Of basically a pathway that they also could have that's not just a national certification?
I don't remember that it came up during the meeting. In some subcommittee work, it has come up. What we don't have is alternate pathways for everybody. And so that's something that needed to be addressed and considered for everyone, deaf and hearing.
I guess if I can just maybe reframe it a little bit, where an EIPA is not a certification, right? I mean, it's an assessment tool, and it's a great tool. I'm a huge supporter of it. And so if you are not nationally certified, if you're not RID or BEI certified, you could get an assessment at a 4.0, right? Only if you're hearing. So hearing people technically have an alternate pathway via the EIPA in a sense that's other than certified, that's other than what we know professionally as being certified. If written this way, then deaf individuals can only do a provisional. They would only qualify for a provisional until they become an official CDI. Hearing interpreters don't have to do that. So that's just my hesitation there, because I just would hate for it to not be fair, if that makes sense.
This is Natasha. So RID has that alternative pathway too. So if you have so many hours, proof that you've been working for so many hours, you would be exempt from taking so many level of college courses. So
So right now, the
Still have to
state of
take the
Louisiana,
test,
yeah,
is what she's saying.
Right.
Still have to take
still have to
the
go the RID
RID,
route.
CEI, CDI test.
okay.
Because right now, the state of Louisiana has no CDIs, right? So the way this
Right.
is written is nobody in this state could be a qualified interpreter under this rule as a deaf interpreter.
Mhm.
They could get a provisional, which is great because it's actually better than what we had previously, which was nothing. But they could never be qualified until they become a CDI under this rule. And that's just where it just gives me a bit of a pause, where an educational interpreter, a hearing interpreter could,
Mhm.
because of the EIPA. And it's unfortunate that's outside of our control that the EIPA doesn't apply. But could there be, something else, some sort of another assessment tool plus a written test plus, could there be an equivalent?
Thoughts? Sherry's asking, how long can you be on provisional? 3 years. And it's not renewable.
I mean, Walker, if you don't mind, how do you feel about that? You're, probably the closest CDI we have in the state.
He originally had a thumbs up. He was the first one that came up a while ago, so.
Walker here. One thought is maybe to take the SLPI as a way to do that if they get upper level, and then they get to be provisional for 3 years, and then, yeah, getting a certification. But Jana's right. It's a conundrum for deaf educational interpreters in particular. There's no equivalent to the EIPA, and so I really don't know how to respond to that.
This is Natasha speaking. SLPI is more conversational, it's not like evaluating how you interpret, how you get the information but it is the only other option in the ASLPI, which I don't even know that still exists. Does?
Could there be, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud for a second, but so in a performance evaluation, so that we're, you're confident that person has the language skills, a knowledge test, and then maybe some sort of a requirement of X amount of hours of training, something that would have said, I have actively, been involved in the interpreting process of learning that process. Maybe you're not certified yet, but you've clearly kind of taken however many hours. Because you're right, the performance alone is just going to say this person is, proficient in ASL, which you still need, because you don't want just someone being like, well, I'm deaf. You don't have to test. Like, no, we still need some documentation, right, for language purposes. But could that maybe be something?
I don't think the SLPI is a proper tool. It's a sign language proficiency interview. It is not sign language and spoken English and or written English proficiency. And we're interpreting between two languages. So that, for me, just doesn't work. The problem, I like your idea, Jana, about an equivalency of X number of hours. Problem is we don't have any type of data to support what is psychometrically the same as a 4.0 in the EIPA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a problem. There's not something that exists that I am aware of, and goodness knows it could be that I'm not aware of it, but there is not another free test, if you will, for CDI other than the actual certification. And calling the EIPA a pre-test is a little bit disingenuous, though we have acknowledged that the 4.0 is a sufficient score to work in the educational setting. It's still not a certification, so I see that perspective, but until something else is written or established, I don't know, we can't invent that. We can't just invent that out of whole cloth. It's a challenge.
Right.
Walker? Hold on a minute, we're switching interpreters.
We're good. Does, I think that we should leave this until there's a new test or some sort of new pathway established and then revisit it and make edits or changes from there. But as of right now, what we have, I mean, this is the only option as a deaf interpreter. If other things arise later on down the horizon, we revisit it then.
This is Jana speaking. I think, you know, for the sake of being, you know, making a decision on what we do know, I think that's probably our best bet, in my opinion. And what we could do is prioritize that, right? And because we would have 3 years from the time whenever this goes into effect, right? Because any deaf interpreter would only have 3 years. And then because it's non-renewable, they would not be able to renew it. So that's something to think about too, unless that were to change and they now either can become certified officially or there's a different option. But yeah, I mean, I did, you know, reach out to Colorado, and one of their responses that was, you know, through many conversations with NAIE, the National Association of Interpreters in Education, and other stakeholders, a lot of states are just adopting the RID-BEI for CDIs, and then because there just isn't anything else, but they do see a few that have at least come up with something. But you're right, Denise, what you were saying earlier, there's really no way to measure at this point, unfortunately.
This is Walker. So I make a motion to keep it as is.
Okay, thank you. We're just doing thumbs at this point while we're in committee of the whole. Okay, all right, we will move on to Jasmine, if you can scroll up. All right, provisional certificate. This is the same as what was under section 3, that the commission is not going to issue certificates. They're going to register interpreters. So should we move this to section 2, jurisdiction? What do I have over there? You see it? It's a little hard to see, and then it's like, and then it's like, will we call this registration or certificate? So what is highlighted right now, the commission shall approve. Are y'all good with moving that to jurisdiction? To section 2? Jurisdiction. Okay, so we're going to move that to section 2. And then there was the question. Let's see.
I think, so the ones at the top here, we will call this registration certificate. So you're talking about this section title, but again, I don't know if that's really relevant yet. I mean, we can come back to that later, in my opinion. And then that next section, move to section 2. Yeah, we would just move that and then talk about it whenever you get to jurisdiction, just get it off of here.
Yeah, probably the words on the top that say and registration, we could probably take that off because we're really just putting in the requirements
Standards
for
now, yeah.
provisional. So y'all good if we take off and registration in this section? Walker. Jasmine, can you do a strike through so he can see that? Okay. All right, what is next? The applicant submits verification. We can just, that was just a cleanup of language. Let's keep scrolling, please. All right, on performance. This is the same as section 3. We name RID instead of just a certifying body, the national certifying body. Everybody good with that? Already agreed to it in section 3. Okay, Earl and Denise and Natasha, that is done. You're gonna see number 6. The Arkansas Quast. Hopefully you had a chance to check that out. There's a suggestion here for provisional that Arkansas Quast level 3, which is intermediate or higher for provisional. Everybody good with that? Oh, we got thumbs already, so. All right. Can you highlight that, just, oh, thumb came up already. All right, so number 6 is done. Number 7. You see a descriptor to the left for Mississippi. And the reason that we added Mississippi in here was so that we dealt with all 3 neighboring states, or the 3 states on our border, where, you know, Mississippi folks are likely to come over here and work just like Arkansas folks. So you see level 2, look on the left, in the left column, you can see what level 2, what their description of level 2 is. Mississippi's level description, rather. Is everybody good with Mississippi Quast level 2 for provisional? All right. We are rocking and rolling, y'all. We are now number 8, deaf interpreters. And this is for provisional. A valid certification from RID. The BEI level 3, whereas qualified required level 4 or level 5. And then NTID offers a certificate in deaf interpreting. It's called CIDI. I don't know if you've looked at that before. It's a 120-hour course that includes 20 hours of pro-tactile training on site. I forget how many weeks it was.
4 weeks.
The whole thing is 4 weeks?
No. For the pro-tactile, you gotta go there.
Yeah, it was 4 days.
Yes, 4 days.
4 days for pro-tactile, but I want to say that certificate is across a few months. Is what I think it is. This gave us another option. It may not be stringent enough for provisional, but Jasmine, can you click that link? And then we can see, I guess, what it is they cover. It's been a week or 2 since I looked at it.
Yeah, while she pulls this up, 120 hours, that's very specific to this particular profession. What if you had someone who had a degree in something else, then plus, I think, what is it, 40 is the other kind of common CDI training? Is it 40 hours?
From
This is-
where?
Yeah,
This is who?
Walker said, yeah.
Walker, do you remember where that 40-hour training, I hear about it a lot. Vanessa just finished one.
Oh, for CDI?
Is the 40 hours required to take the test? Is that why it's 40?
Yes, more or less, yes. You have to have 40 hours of training to be able to sit for the exam, yes. So, but also you might as well do it to know what the test is gonna look like anyway.
To take what test?
RID.
Yes, BEI actually. BEI requires 40 hours training. Now, RID, I don't know. I haven't been focused on RID anymore. I focus more on BEI.
And by the way, the curriculum is up right now. If you want to look at what is covered during the CIDI course of study at NTID. Okay, thank you, Jasmine. If you can go back to the document. Any other thoughts on this? Because remember, this is for provisional. I can't see everybody.
This is Walker. I would say leave it as is. What we have right now.
Okay, any other thoughts? I see another thumb and another thumb. Earl and Denise, thoughts on it? Okay, all the thumbs are up. Walker, I'm curious, for the BEI level 3 intermediary, that's the 40-hour class. Oh,
Waiting, sorry.
it's usually turned. It did like Jasmine was
Go
started
ahead.
on
Your
and you
question.
started migrating.
You were asking Walker a question?
Yes, the BEI level 3 intermediary is the 40-hour course you have to take. And then you can sit for the test.
The 40 hours is to show you how to be a deaf interpreter. As part of that 40 hours, then they give you some idea of what the test is going to look like. And then you go take the written exam, pass that, and then you have to do the performance exam after that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Earl? I'm sorry, I thought you said something. All right, so we had thumbs up on number 8. And so that section is done. We can move on. And Jasmine, the part that says, well, never mind, we'll do it later. Let's scroll on down.
120 hours of professional training.
All right.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes, Denise.
Where's that BEI training is 40 clock hours or 40 Carnegie unit hours?
They're separate. This is Walker, separate. It doesn't have anything to do with BEI per se. It's, it's its own cohort, but then basically you've done the 40 hours, you can go take BEI or you could go do RID. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think it's 40 contact hours.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jasmine, if you can scroll up a little.
So this is Janice speaking. So again, I guess I'm going to be difficult again. So the certificate in deaf interpreting is 120 hours. So we're talking about a provisional 120 hours. How available is this one particular thing if that's the only option they have otherwise, other than being a CDI? I mean, you're talking about provisional for deaf interpreters. So either they're certified a CDI, or the only other option is they have this certificate in deaf interpreting from NTID for a provisional, is the way that I'm reading this.
The BEI level 3 intermediary.
I'm sorry, or the BEI level 3.
Yeah, it was we found the other option and wanted to make sure that we listed it. If you did not want to take RID or BEI yet, or you weren't ready, it was another option.
So just to clarify this, Natasha, so it's RID or BI level 3 intermediary or NTID certificate in deaf interpreting.
Yeah.
Because
And we could put other ors, but we don't know of any others that, there's something that you have to do that lends credibility to what they're giving you at the end that you actually accomplished.
I mean, that's a 20-week program that requires 4 days on campus. That's the only way you can go work as an educational deaf interpreter with a provisional is you got to do 20 weeks of a CDI training. I mean, you have hearing interpreters that can have a 2.9 EIPA. This just feels very restrictive. Like you're talking, these people have to be, to even just start getting a job as a provisional to work towards your CDI, you have to start with either BEI 3 or above, an RID, or a 20-week CIDI program. Like, to me, that just feels like that's a lot of that's a high requirement compared to an interpreter who can get an EIPA score at a 2.9 and get the same job. You know, like it feels way more restrictive and strict on the deaf interpreters than the hearing interpreters for a provisional.
Yeah.
Without there not being some other option. That's just my concern. You're never gonna, I mean, it's gonna take a long time before you can even get deaf people to apply for these jobs if they have to go through all this just to get a provisional. And hearing people don't have to do that. So that's just my concern.
Yeah, lack of testing or lack of instruments. It's definitely an obstacle.
Walker here.
Walker?
I would recommend removing the NTID as an option and just leave BEI and RID for now.
Thoughts on that? Can't see everybody.
Oh,
Oh, there.
That is everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, we listening.
yeah.
Just momentarily, I'm just moving from one vehicle to the next. That, if we remove one, that's more restrictive, not less restrictive.
Right.
I agree.
Right, it's more options. It's just unfortunate. There's no other options. It's unfortunate EIPA doesn't allow deaf interpreters. That would be,
Ideal, yeah. Resolve all this
Maybe EIPA written plus something, like EIPA written test plus.
And that's what we did talk about was like the written test plus some sort of performance, you know, just to make sure of the right appropriate language skills. And then, you know, maybe some sort of formal training. But yeah, just that's a 20-week program.
Oh, it's not ideal,
Right.
but it
This
was
other
looking
one is
for
40
anything.
hours, and that's still, you know, a lot, the one that Walker and Vanessa did. I would almost move that CIDI up to qualified. I mean, it's a pretty intense program.
I don't know that there's a test at the end. It doesn't indicate that there is.
Yeah, it's the certificate of completion.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we could certainly revisit it in the very near future and put some advocacy work, you know, behind it with these groups of thinking to get something in place soon. Groups meaning these testing, you know, organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very excited that BEI offers something because at least they're right next door without having to travel up north or to the, you know, either coast. So it's nice that BEI is offering that, but I really would like to see EIPA pursue that.
Yeah.
And then I have a note for alternate pathways. I don't think we're gonna get to that today. But I mean, that still needs to be considered for everybody. All right, so I think number 8, A, B, and C as being options to satisfy this section. And Denise, is your thumb up? There it is. All right, we'll move on.
Looks like Natasha's question was related to the strike throughs. Can we just mark that as complete? Natasha, you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was it for section 4. We'll look at section 6. This is not any different than what we agreed on at the last meeting. Oh, let's see what we have over there.
I think that was an old note, just to make sure, that might have been our very first meeting, just to make sure that RID or BEI hadn't changed any of the names of their certificates.
All righty, we can go to section 7. If you can keep scrolling, I'm looking to see what's new. I know we agreed to most of this at the last meeting. Section C.
Can you read it?
Yeah, and this refers to a renewal timeline.
Yeah, it, like when I was reading it, it says fees, but if you read it, it says LCD shall send a notice of renewal at least 60 days. This is under the renewal category. It's not about fees. So I think it just is accidentally titled in section C, maybe titled incorrectly.
Scroll back to the top of this section. What is it called? Oh, renewal guidelines. Okay.
And fees, if any, is like in section 8, it's the next one. So I just think it might be titled wrong.
Okay, so we need a new title on section C instead of fees. Renewal notice. Would that be good? Renewal notice?
Makes sense.
Does that sound good? Denise, were you a thumb up? And she's a thumb up. Walker is a thumb up too. Okay.
Flying through, doing good.
And then section 8, which are the registration guidelines and fees. We're not doing 8 today, or we're not doing it right now. We are moving to 10.
And if I may, for the sake of the public, there was some discussion between the committee and LCD staff about which of these sections may apply to everyone, not just education. And those that were agreed upon that do the language that does and could apply to every interpreter is being held off a little bit longer. So I did just want to make that clear. There is no other reason for us not focusing on it just yet, as I know you guys spend a lot of time talking about some of the registration, like the fees and grievance process last week, or the previous meeting, excuse me. So if time allows, this committee, I think, could continue to work on those pieces, but what we really need completed today are the ones that are very specific to education only, in order for DOE, Department of Education, to get this draft to the BESI board in a timely manner. So just for the sake of transparency, that was discussed via email and agreed upon that we would hold off on some of these sections until a little bit later.
Okay, we are on section 10. Last meeting, we completed that section for provisional, for restrictions, for provisional interpreters, and you see them listed there. For qualified interpreters, we didn't see notes in here. Was it to do more research? Oh, we were gonna look at NAIE guidelines, which actually we did list over on the left. If you can scroll up a little bit. Right there. Oh, come back down. One more bump. Right there. If you want to read through that right quick. Oh, all right. There we go. This is basically the same discussion that we were having at the last meeting on restrictions. So now looking at qualified, what restrictions do we want to list for this level? Let's look at the first question. Are there any restrictions for this level? And Jasmine, if you can bump it down just a little bit. The other way. I guess I never know whether to say go up or down. See the restrictions for provisional. Let's just list those out. Can a qualified do IEP meetings? Maybe we'll break it down that way. Everybody good with a qualified interpreter doing an IEP meeting? All right, can a qualified do mental health? That could be an EIPA 4. Say no. We got a thumb down over here.
Okay, if I may, concern here though, if you have a student who's trying to get to a counselor for something that is, you know, massively important right then and there, no interpreter on that campus, even the certified interpreters can't go interpret, they would need to go outside. Because if you're saying qualified could be an RID certified, it could be a 4.0, it could be the way we've defined it up above.
Right.
So, but the way I'm hearing is right now is no interpreter on that campus would be qualified to go to a counselor.
Probably, in my opinion, I think it needs to be slightly neutral, you know, depending. It just.
I mean, how do y'all well, I say y'all, you're not there anymore. How does LSD handle it?
Back.
Huh?
She's back.
Oh, you are back?
Mhm.
You know, do you use your on-campus interpreters for mental health settings to
We
go to a
do.
counselor?
We are RID certified though.
Well, right.
That's the requirement. That was really what I was saying a while ago, qualifying this, that can qualified interpreters do it because there could be an EIPA 4.0. You
Right.
have to look at what is the least stringent or the least rigorous test, I guess. And that was the EIPA. And so, I mean, you could be qualified, but if you don't have already credentials, then you can't do it. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? For mental health, for qualified.
I know that's sticky.
Yeah, it depends for me. It's just too hard to quantify.
We have to list though, if we're gonna,
Yeah, no, you're right.
a restriction or not.
I mean, could you just adopt the language on the left? From NAIE?
It does say contracted from outside the school is often required. And the second one, legal situations. Needs to be specialized. To me, this pretty much supported what we did in provisional, and now we just need to do some specifics in qualified. or have no restrictions? So thoughts?
I mean, just this is Jana, just my opinion. I mean, that just gets really, really hard to police. I mean, if you're talking about in education, people who are nationally certified, BEI, maybe level 5, they could have a 5.0 EIPA. Everybody's in this qualified category in education settings. And now you're saying none of them could actually technically work in any of these environments if they work at that school. Like, how would you truly police that and or help educate, you know, educators on who's appropriate and who's not at that point? I mean, a qualified interpreter, if they can't, there are absolutely going to be situations for sure. Any of us who've ever worked in a school agree with that you need to call some outside people in, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. But I guess I would be afraid. Mental health is just a large category, for example. Like, if you're going to be specific, you have to be real specific. Because if you say mental health, that could be a teacher talking to a student who's crying in the hallway. Like, you know, where do you draw that line?
Yeah.
So that's just, yeah. And then you'd have nobody be able to work.
It gets very sticky, and educational interpreters are made to go into a lot of those situations and not given a choice. And I don't know that they realize how sticky it could be for them to go in there.
This is Natasha, and just the perspective of the student, they may be closed chested, you know, they may be too scared to share because this is my interpreter,
Yeah.
you know?
The one who's going to be looking at me all
Right,
day
depending on the
long.
situation, right? Are they gonna look at me differently now because I revealed something, or it's very sticky. That's why it's nice to have a neutral party to come in, if it just depends, you know?
How do y'all want to write that? Just depends.
I mean, I think
Situation.
certainly there could be some guidance that, you know, that needs to go out to schools to support, you know, some of this as well. That may not just belong here, you know, but in this section, but that certainly there's some work that needs to be done there in educating, you know, people.
Earl?
Yeah, it is sticky, but in this particular instance, what I'm seeing is a situation of maybe somebody can do something or be qualified to do it, but should they? So some interpreters who work in educational settings, when they're not in the educational setting, probably do some of these very things. But in that educational setting, based on what Natasha just said and certain other circumstances that may come up, though they are skilled enough and qualified enough to handle the situation, is that always the best thing? That might be for the school to determine for reasons we've already discussed. And in certain cases, they may need to call a neutral party, just because even though the interpreter can, you know, facilitate the communication effectively, the student may not want that particular interpreter, or maybe they're too close to the situation and they need to pull in somebody neutral, and the school needs to know that too.
Well, I think beyond looking at whether it's appropriate for you to go in there. I mean, I work at a school, and there are some places it's not appropriate for me to go into, only because maybe I've interpreted for this kid, but we have the luxury of having other interpreters, and we're all nationally certified, who can go and handle that. But what we need to look at here is, what are we going to say that a qualified interpreter can do?
Let's see Joe Brown's comment.
No.
I can read it.
Oh.
Joe Brown says, this is where demand control schema training is needed. Ongoing mental health interpreting should be someone neutral.
Right. And the policing and the enforcement is still actually a big issue with several of us on the committee about how that's going to be handled. And you know, I don't know if we can put that here. Well, let's look at whether or not the qualified interpreter could do it. Denise?
Can we add some language like, I think we all agree that it depends tends to be the best answer here, but could we add some language like a qualified sign language interpreter working in an educational setting can work within within these settings in an emergency setting only, or in an with caution, and then with a strong recommendation added in? I'm not sure if that's something that's permitted.
I think that's a good question, Denise. I'm leaning to saying that no, that, you know, the purpose of rules are to be very clear and black and white, because they are to basically tell you how the law is being, you know, provided, where any guidance or, you know, explanation or recommendations is kind of like the tier below that, right? You know, that's
Yeah.
where like guidance manuals would come in, or, you know, something, but in rules, I would fear that legal would kick it out anyway, because it's not a very black and white kind of, you know, clear statement.
Joe Brown just says NAIE guidelines explains it well, so we could just put that in. And
so something like that, because you're given a directive, consult NAIE, you know, something, but yeah, we definitely have to be clear on what we're trying to tell them in this rule with regards to this particular qualification. Because I'm just hesitant to say that you can't, because there may be instances where you have to, you know, and again, when you're saying qualified, you may be talking about a very high level qualified interpreter who doesn't interpret for that student, but happens to be on campus, but because they hold a qualified certification paper from the LDOE, the way this is kind of, you know, we didn't write it yet, but the way that is that by definition, you would be saying nobody with the certificate can do this job, a mental health for a student, rather than saying that and the student's interpreter can't do it. You're saying none of them can.
Right.
You know,
That's why I started off in the beginning. It's like, do we say that qualified only if you also have RID certification, or you also have BEI advanced?
Maybe being a little bit more specific like that, like nationally certified interpreters only, you know, or something. I don't know. But, you know, an EIPA 5.0 passed the written test, you know, it's a pretty qualified person in that type of setting.
They need to go take the national certification.
Sure.
It's pretty qualified, but it's not qualified for more outside agency. It's very qualified for in an educational setting, but it's not when you bring in agencies like Child and Family Services or the police or XYZ.
Mm-hmm. So maybe just say BEI level, whatever, and RID nationally certified can, you know, should be the most appropriate. I don't know.
Okay, so for mental health, do you want to say qualified interpreters who also hold or who hold RID and BEI advanced or higher? All right, Jasmine, you got that?
Do you think the title proficiency levels is the appropriate title for what we're doing right here? It's just a random thought.
No.
It feels like restrictions or,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the right word either, but.
that's probably the right word. Leslie?
This is Leslie. I have a note to, once we get done with this, to go back and go, hey, maybe we should change the title. So, yeah, I don't think proficiency levels is appropriate. It gives false information and what expected in this particular section. So.
Are y'all good with changing the title to restrictions?
Jasmine. Jasmine, I think you put the information in the wrong spot.
Yeah, we'll get it
out here.
Are y'all good with the, and there were two more people I need to see what your thoughts are on the new title being restrictions. Earl and Walker, y'all good with that? Okay. And Walker, okay, good.
I think it goes here, Jasmine.
You got it.
Qualified sign language interpreters who hold RID or BEI advanced or higher, working in educational setting. I mean, you have to finish the sentence, but
If you would come under qualified and just type in the word mental health. So yeah, bump that down. The who hold, I'm sorry, qualified sign language interpreters, and then return, bump that down. Right, and then in front of who hold, just put mental health.
you meant it in front of who hold.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So mental health, and then who hold, only those who hold. And we'll rewrite it, it's just,
Yeah, just so make.
just
sure
get it down,
clear
but
what I'm trying to say.
BEI or RID or BEI advanced or higher. And you can take off working in an educational setting. What about school resource officer? Are you fine with a qualified interpreter doing school resource officer?
I think, I mean, again, like whoever mentioned earlier about ongoing, no, but in the moment, what are you gonna do? There's a fight that breaks out, you know, are you gonna run and go and try to find a neutral interpreter from another agency? Like, that's not realistic.
Right.
I would be afraid to say you can't do it, because if you say you can't, then you can't. So,
There's different levels, there's like the superficial and then there's the more severe. So,
It depends.
yeah.
but yeah, so just to consider, if you say you can't, then you can't. So I'll just be a little careful with.
And most school resource officer, SRO interactions are not investigative or, yeah.
But if it turns into an ongoing, like an investigation, then yes, like I think that's where that would kick in, but.
Do you want to do school resource officer when it becomes an investigation? That it has to be RID or BEI advanced? And not the child's regular, well, there may be only one interpreter on the campus.
I think we also have to remember there may not be a BEI or RID interpreter on the campus either. So there's still going to be that challenge.
Yeah. But in general, for school resource officer, qualified, are you okay with that, or do you want the restriction? Tell me if you want a restriction. Maybe we'll break it down that way. No, oh, yes, for restrictions?
Where's everybody keep going?
Okay, now see you again. Okay, so do you want restrictions on school resource officer?
Yes, what you just suggested, if it rises to the level of outside agency or investigative, or I guess, something along those lines.
I mean, what if that becomes the language though, rather than naming these kind of different environments or possibilities, like what if there's some good language out there and I can certainly look at the way some of the other related service providers. So, there may be something similar related to school counselors or social workers or, nurses, different things like that, that may be like kind of a similar equivalent to say, if the situation has X, Y, Z, it requires this versus naming kind of each, because we're not going to get them all. I mean, there's always going to be something we didn't think about if we try to list a bunch of them. But there may be a way to word it. Are you following me? Okay.
Mhm. We can look at, the thing is, I'm trying to get as concrete as we can.
Yeah.
Because we need to be black and white too, in that when we leave, everybody knows, well, yeah, we put that in there.
So
We wanted it.
one way we could maybe handle this would be if the committee is agreeing and it is an agreement that those restrictions should exist in environments or situations that would require, external department, kind of like y'all wrote for, I think y'all said it for provisional. You said it well. Then we could continue to work on how do we frame that, because you will see this draft, the committee will see the draft before it goes, somewhere else anyway. But what you're agreeing upon is the content, the spirit of what it says, and we figure out how to word that correctly. And then you guys can agree on that later. I mean, that's certainly something we could do today.
So Jasmine, after school resource officer, just put on there if it,
Should it arise?
yeah, if it escalates to a investigative nature or. And y'all are good with including that? It must be 5 o'clock. You feel the air went off.
Mm.
Are y'all good with that idea being included? Okay, and then interactions with outside agencies, as in Child and Family Services and the police. Do we want that in there? Okay. Just like the other two, mental health and SRO?
Mhm.
I'm seeing yeses, so give me some thumbs. And Walker. Okay. Okay, and then are there any others other than those three? Mental health, SRO, or outside agencies? Okay, if you think of any, oh, you have one? Walker.
Walker here. I'm also thinking about restrictions in terms of the Baton Rouge area. And also in the Shreveport area. And Denise is in New Orleans, and so in these areas, those districts have the money, they can afford to get a variety of interpreters. But if you're thinking about these, so about St. Helena, that parish is really poverty stricken, and so they need to be bringing in outside interpreters. That's a big limitation for them. I don't know. I mean, I do like the concept, but I'm just thinking about putting it into practice in these rural parishes, in the poorer parishes that can't afford those kinds of resources. Do we force them to do that, or how do we address that? Is this applicable to every place or only to the wealthier parishes? That's what I've been thinking about throughout this discussion. I don't know how to handle it.
And I would say to that we're establishing what the standards are for someone to provide those services. Because if they don't have whatever we have set as the minimum, which is RID or BEI advanced, do you trust the interpretation that was provided? So, and the
How do
scarcity-
we manage that though?
Right. And we're not looking at the scarcity. We're looking at what is the minimum level somebody should have in order to do that kind of work. The scarcity is scary. And we all feel that. All right, if we think of any other situations that you want to include here, just bring it up and we'll come back. Let's look at the second question, and that is, can qualified sign language interpreters work at all levels, meaning elementary, middle school, or high school? I'm seeing thumbs and nods. Okay. Can I don't know what the difference is between the one we just answered and the next question. Any idea what the difference is between those two? And the third one after that. Jasmine, can you highlight the one you just answered yes? And can EIPA and can RID? Can you highlight those three together? Okay. Are those all the same question? Earl?
Weren't those the placeholder questions to make sure that we didn't miss anything? And now that we've handled, we've put restrictions, so obviously there are some. So I think that's kind of, we answer in each bullet as we go through this. I think that's what that is.
The restrictions that we just talked about were different kinds of interpreting or different situations rather. And this is, it sounds like all three are related to, can an EIPA interpret in elementary and can they interpret it in high school? So once you get qualified, is there any restriction as to what school, what level you can interpret at? Classes? Or is it qualified generically? You can walk into any classroom on any campus. Thoughts?
That's kind of a difficult question to answer. This is Earl, by the way, sorry. It's kind of a difficult thing to answer. It would have to, something to be examined by each particular school district or in each area. Theoretically, yes, I would think that somebody's qualified should be able to go to, elementary or secondary level and interpret, but maybe in that school, there's a particular student they just don't fit well with, or there may be a subject that they're not as well suited for as others. They may generally be able to do some, but maybe there's certain circumstances that vary depending on the interpreter, the class subject, as well as the particular student or students involved.
And that will be a little difficult to put into standards. I would hope that people would consider that.
You would, and I think about, these standards are going in a professional occupational standard. I mean, how often do you see other occupations who have successfully completed whatever requirement it is and then have a bunch of restrictions on top of them? I think you have best practices, you have, guidance for organizations of, what environments are best, but I don't know that there should be, in my opinion, just too many restrictions on someone who should be technically qualified and already, that really, the interpreter themselves and the district and all, there's got to be some responsibility in there too, other than us kind of placing all these restrictions on someone who should be acting as if they are nationally certified and functioning as so, or BEI So yeah, so my vote would be yes, that they should be able to work in all of those environments under the qualified section. We all know there's always a depends, but generally speaking, they should.
This is Natasha. So if that interpreter doesn't feel comfortable interpreting whatever subject because they don't have that knowledge or background, first they should get the material to help prep, right? But if not, then hand it over to someone they feel mechanics. If it's an automotive class, like, okay, if there's somebody else that knows more about that subject, let's hand it over to that person, you know?
And within the code of ethics, they're supposed to, right? So again, I don't know what belongs here when they're already kind of required to do that within the code of ethics.
So are you comfortable with what we put as the requirements for qualified, that is the minimum level in order to handle all school levels, elementary and secondary? Okay. Then to me, all of those questions just go away.
Yep.
They all leave.
Lynn, do you want to take a quick break?
Yeah. And then the who will police it doesn't belong here. It's gonna be, that belongs somewhere else. And when we talk about enforcement, that's where that would go. And we have a recommendation here. The student's interpreter cannot interpret any interactions concerning that interpreter. So that is that a recommendation or a restriction? It's common sense, but do we need to put that in there that the student's interpreter cannot interpret any interactions concerning the interpreter, him or herself?
We have schools that have one child and one interpreter. So I think you have to, I don't think you can make that a restriction.
Is it not in line with the others though? That you have to bring in an outside interpreter for something? So you got to bring in an outside interpreter if the kid is complaining about the interpreter in their classroom.
Or it's a disciplinary thing. Or, yeah, I mean, since we can't put recommendations into rule,
yeah, this would show up as a restriction. This is Billy has a problem with what the interpreter does and it wants to complain to the principal.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would surely hope that the school would be smart enough to
Like I
find
said,
somebody else. So the restriction,
They're not, Jenna. I'm just saying.
yeah, I know. But in my mind, you're saying the restriction is on the interpreter. So let's just play devil's advocate for a second. You have an interpreter who little Billy is mad at, and that interpreter was like, well, I don't care. I'm interpreting for you anyway. You know, but like, you know, how realistic is this to say, well, somewhere in here, this says that you can't, and somebody knows that you can't, even though you shouldn't, because ethically you shouldn't ever do that, right? Like, I just, again, I don't know. I mean, we could put it in there and make people feel better, but realistically, is it going to do anything? At some point, you know, again, you have a qualified interpreter who's got to be professionally responsible for not taking those types of environments without us overly explicitly stating it over and over again.
And there'll be a grievance policy, so.
Within the school, yeah.
Yeah, that would be separate from this though. That would be in the school.
What we could do is maybe add, again, some kind of more general language, you know, any environments, you know, any situations directly involving the students. I don't know how to word it off the top of my head, but yeah, you know, just keep it. That could, or, you know, could, you know, yeah, propose a conflict of interest in some kind of way.
Well, how about we take a break for 10 minutes and then anyone who's got any language that they can throw in there, put something in there. We'll take a break. It is 5:15. We'll be back at 5:25. We got songs everywhere.
Mute and turn the video off. We can ask Jasmine to pull it back up.
Section 10. Okay, it is 5:25. And we are back in session. We were on section 10. Did you add something in here, Jen?
Yeah, so go back down, Jasmine, right there is highlighted. That last bullet, situations which could reflect a conflict of interest between the student and the interpreter. Which is generally,
Okay. We'll wait for Leslie Walker.
so
Earl?
we want to go ahead and take this off. Who will police it? Since you said that goes in a different section. anyway.
Yeah, all of that. Are there any restrictions for this level? All of that, yeah, that can go. Earl, did you have your hand raised to speak, to comment? No? Okay,
Okay.
I did.
yeah. Earl, go ahead and raise your hand first, I think.
I couldn't hear anything and I didn't know if y'all were trying to talk to me or not. I had to get the earbuds reconnected. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, Denise?
This situations which could reflect a conflict of interest between the student and the interpreter should defer to the NAIE X and such. That's pretty general.
You can figure out how to word it later, but like that, is that what you mean?
Should
Like-
defer, not refer, defer.
Oh, sorry. So can we delete this recommendation? Just, I think that's just a thought. It's not an actual recommendation in language. It was just a,
Yeah,
everybody okay with that?
y'all go,
Delete.
what's highlighted right now? What's highlighted right now, y'all go with taking that off? Right.
I got it highlighted, Jasmine.
Right there.
I think that's the problem is she was doing it when I was doing it. too.
All right, that, what's in blue right now, are y'all good with that leaving? Okay. All right, it's gone.
You got that, Jasmine? Okay.
All right, anything else on qualified? Okay. Are y'all good with, we're done with qualified? And what's up there? Y'all good with that? Or now?
For now, Walker says yes.
All right, we will move to, well,
11.
yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
This one was suggested by Jasmine to move out into an article because really that language could apply to any setting, not just education. Would you guys agree with that? Anytime there's a student intern from like Delgado or another higher education, really that could apply to any setting.
Yes, because student teachers, same thing.
Okay. Is everybody cool with moving section 11 out into its own article? And Walker, you good? Okay. All right, section 12. Did anyone get a chance to check the maintenance requirements for NAIE?
Jasmine, were you the one who put, because I don't think I wrote that, table pending research on NAIE guidelines?
Yeah, I think that was a discussion from the last meeting. I think the guidelines were emailed, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the maintenance.
This is
Honestly, I haven't looked at it.
So does NAIE, just without looking at it, sorry, but do they have information on a provisional renewal, or is this something we should be coming up with ourselves? So you're talking about the provisional, it's maintenance, I'm sorry, for provisional. It's not a renewal. It's just what should they be doing in that 3-year period of time? Does NAIE even have language about that? So it used to be 10 hours every year of CEUs, or 10 contact hours to renew their provisional. Just to remind you of what it
It's
used to be.
only 10? It wasn't 20? This 20, though, I know falls in line with what qualified have to do. And in fact, it was at 25 because the provisional was considered to have less training in the beginning, so. But it's now at 20. I don't know if Joe is still on. She's kind of been our resident NAIE.
I have, this is Natasha, I have it up on my phone right now. And I see it says, at a minimum, a qualified educational interpreter, hold on, meets professional development requirements as outlined by state and or local education agencies. So it's the state that would determine.
It's just different to us.
Okay. Well, if we could break it down. Let's go on the first line. It says submit annually. And the point there was that even though they would have this for 3 years, the desire was for someone with provisional not wait until, well, to prove that there was education that was occurring. And if you didn't submit it annually, then your certificate could be revoked or would be revoked. So let's start with that first idea. Do you want maintenance requirements of 20 hours to be submitted annually or provisional? Are all thoughts? You fine with it? Okay. And then, so the provisional interpreter would submit a maintenance form, whatever form LCD decided that they wanted with the verification that came in. And verification, let's look at the number of hours. Are y'all good with 20 hours a year? Denise, I'm sorry if you already did your thumb one way or the other, or you're still thinking, okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. All right, and then the section where it says that it has to be approved by already and or BEI. Those 20 hours. And Leslie? Oh, no?
Didn't we have some wording that some of it didn't have to be RID, BEI, CEU approved in above?
Or qualified, yes.
Qualified? So requiring 20 hours, I'm all for the 20 hours, you know,
But 20 hours of
what you get.
CEU, different.
right, because they may have, you know, like teacher in-service day that they go to, just like the examples that we used before. I don't think all of the 20 should have to be RID or BEI approved.
Okay, counter.
No. Let me go back
Democracy.
and figure out what we did.
We did 75 and 25, so we did
3/4.
25% could be sponsored by the school.
I'm gonna counter with 50-50. We can go from there.
For
Especially for
provisional,
especially for provisional, because they are still trying to get into the profession and what professional development actually means. I think 50-50 works.
I agree.
So how do you want this worded?
So Walker, are you good with 50-50? Okay,
Yes.
so so 20 hours of workshop and or training. And then I guess you could say minimum after training, put in parentheses, minimum of 10 hours. Must be approved by RID and or BEI.
Yes.
And then the other breakdown of the 20 hours is that 15 were to be professional studies and 5, a minimum of 5 being ethics training. Do you still want to have specifics listed there?
What if you just put the minimum of 5 hours in ethics training and then left the other 15 kind of just loose? Because then they could do the school trainings, they could do, but I think the ethics piece is important.
Thoughts?
I think we chose the words professional studies because it was going to all be RID certified. That's a RID term. So it could just be a minimum of 15 hours. Knowledge and content, I don't know, some other kind of term. Because to make room for the 10 hours that might be done by the school that include things like CPR, you know, that, are vital when you're working in a school or, that kind of thing. So maybe just change professional studies to another title.
Or remove it. And
Or just remove it.
and then leave the 5 hours that of ethics training. Because you've already got the restriction of the 50-50 in that first bullet.
Right, right.
Okay, do you want 5 hours of ethics training, a minimum of 5 hours of ethics training to be kept? Okay, and then do you want any restriction on the other 15 hours? That they need to be in professional studies versus general studies? So. All right, those in favor of removing that bullet of the minimum of 15 hours in professional studies? Those who want that part removed, that one removed? And Jasmine, if you can just do a strike through it for right now, be easier to track.
may I ask to add the word of interpreter ethics training with the 5?
Yes,
Because there's
Everybody
all
good with
kinds of
that?
ethics training.
yeah. Y'all good with interpreter ethics?
You're good with us just clearing that table pending research and question on the side, just getting it off of there.
Okay, y'all good with interpreter ethics? I'm sorry, I looked away and didn't
Yes.
thumbs. Okay. The next one, allowing a grace period of 30 days past the due date for receipt is allowed. Are y'all good with that? And Walker? Okay. And then the provisional certificate would be revoked if it's in past the grace period. Okay, and then this is a question that came up before, and that is, can the person apply again if it gets revoked? Because they didn't turn in their CEUs, can they just turn in all their verification again of their EIPA written and whatever else we have listed for provisional?
That's Natasha. I'm just thinking, what if someone moved out of state and then they come back? You know, it could be situations.
But if they want to maintain the provisional certificate, they still need to send in their, oh, you're just talking about if they moved and just let it drop and then they came back at like in 2.5 years.
Mhm.
How do you want to handle
We also
those?
have to address if the clock starts over. If they had it for a year, they move, they don't maintain it, they come back, do they get another 3-year stint or do they only get 2 years?
Right. So let's go ahead and answer that question, since that's our latest question. Let's answer that one. Thoughts on what Denise brought up? Earl?
My question is this a case where they themselves allowed it to lapse because they moved out of state? Or is this an automatic, they moved, so therefore it's dropped? Because like my certification is from out of state also, but I keep it going because it's the only one I had until this, until we get this one set up or whatever. Can they continue to just send in if they choose to keep it going just in case? Maybe they go into a state where they have reciprocity and they'll accept this. So maybe if they keep it going, that's great. But if they let it lapse, then they'd have to start over when they come back. That's what we're asking about.
Or if it's revoked.
Oh, no, that's a different story. Yeah, if it's revoked, yeah, start over.
But do you get 3 years? That's my question. I think it's 2 different questions.
We might be up to 3 now.
So,
Jana?
yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of administratively. I mean, if something is revoked, I mean, that feels like you shouldn't get a new one unless for some reason there's like, a very clear reason, extenuating circumstance that it was, that it had been revoked for consideration versus someone let it lapse, potentially. I mean, could there be a definition for that? Where a lapse, yes, you could potentially come back and pick up where you left off if you just happen to move out of state for a while or something. And I guess revoking to me feels like very negative, and so there's like a consequence involved in that.
But we're talking about maintaining the CEUs. So we're saying that the provisional certificate is revoked if it's past the 30 days. So it is revoked. Whether or not there's no way we can
Right, there-
quantify, I was going through chemo and didn't get my stuff in, I was, whatever. So the certificate's gone. My question is, when we reapply, or if we allow reapplying, does the clock start over? Do I get 3 more years if I've already used up 2? Or do I only get 1?
I would say the situations are very different, because you see the last line, if somebody's going through chemo, they need to ask for an exception.
Sure.
Which stop the clock and then start again when they are ready to go back to work. To me, that is a whole different situation than someone who went, I didn't get it done. It wasn't a priority for me.
Right, and I remember you guys talked about at a previous meeting, what if they then turn around and 30 days later apply again? Now they got a whole nother 3-year term. One of the good things about, I think, again, thinking about it administratively, is our database could be set up where there is a date in the database, so that, you know, nobody could just kind of come up and be like, well, you know, I didn't actually have that. There's a historical record of when they applied, what that date was, when they should have lapsed, when it should have expired, and all, you know, there's going to be a historical record of it. So potentially saying like, okay, you know, fine, you turned in all your stuff and you reapplied for provisional, but now you only have a year left because you used up 2 of them. Like, I think that administratively that is doable within the database, just to kind of share a perspective on that.
So what I'm hearing, and maybe correct me please, is that it is 3 years no matter what. There's no 2 years, leave it, come back and get 3 more years. Is that correct?
I don't think that's what I was implying, no, because
Okay.
I remember you guys talking about, you know, what if somebody did? They're like, I just didn't have time. I didn't prioritize this. I don't care. Well, I'm gonna let it lapse for 30 days. And now I'm just gonna go get a brand new renewal for 3 more years. Like, no, I don't think that would be appropriate, right? Because you're giving them a lot of time to stay on provisional because they're not taking care of their business. I think the 3-year goal is to get them moved up to the next level in a timely manner, right? So I think in my mind, I would be hesitant to say that it would be 3 years no matter what, because people could take advantage of that tech. And, you know,
Yeah.
in my mind.
Leslie?
This is Leslie. If it's revoked, we could put something in there that says you cannot reapply for another 3 years or 5 years or however long it is. It's not that they leave and come back and then do it. They have to wait a certain amount of time before they can reapply, if that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and maybe there's an exception, you know, process that's set up that if you would like to repeal that, you know, that policy, or you'd like to ask for an exception, because RID does it too. They give you a one-time ability to kind of fight it. It's only once, but in your lifetime, they'll allow you to at least submit a request. But maybe there's a process that the board would then review and say, okay, based on your circumstances, you can start back over or something.
Well, is that covered with that last sentence there where it starts off with the exceptions?
So I guess to Denise's point would the board then, I guess, determine what their time frame would be when they do request that exception? Or would it be a across the board policy of 3 years or 1 year or? And you know, if the board would be making that determination, like, all right, based on this person's situation, they get another 3 years, or no, they only get 1 year. It wouldn't go here, you know, but
There's a lot of, it depends.
oh, I know.
Interpreter's famous last words. It depends.
So,
Well, let's go
for
back.
Maintenance, so going back to the section's title, it's maintenance, right? So I guess we're not really necessarily getting into exceptions. We don't have to get into exceptions of the maintenance in this section for the sake of just saying what the maintenance is. Because there could be exceptions written in a way that then has additional policies that aren't in rule. That could get very specific if we so choose to do it that way.
And where would those be listed?
On the website, like there'd be a manual, like LCD would create like a policy manual for those types of things that gets very specific about processes, but anything that needs to be a hard, fast rule should go in here.
Okay, then let's look at where it starts off. Provisional certificate will be revoked. We already agreed to that one. There was earlier discussion about if your certificate, your provisional is revoked, are you allowed to apply again ever? Or no?
I think the exception language is appropriate.
Ms. Natasha, should we put clarification like lapse and revoke?
Where?
No, it's not in there. Should we add that?
I know where.
Oh, I don't know.
After will, provisional certificate will lapse when form is not sent in. Is that what you're talking about?
I think, in my opinion, without getting too technical, I feel like it reads well. You're saying you're going to lose your certificate if it comes in after the grace period. You get a grace period. If you don't get it in, it's going to end. It's going to be revoked. It's going to lapse. It's going to whatever. It's going to go away.
Expire.
It's going to expire. But then there can be exceptions made.
Okay.
I kind of feel like it touches on all three. But again, the only other thing would be how much time are they getting back on the clock? But that may just not go in this section. It may
That'll be determined by ICB.
Policy created by the ICB, correct?
Because we don't even know if they're getting time on the clock until determine whether or not the excuse has been acceptable. So
Yeah, because the ICB, really would need to make these types of policies anyway, because I think you want transparency. So, have an exemption policy, of the board that other people are aware of what those policies are. That could definitely be developed and get very detailed for the future. So people know what it is.
Okay, so where it says section 14, can they apply again? Do you want to send this to the ICB for further development and out of this committee? Oh, Earl, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand up. The thing is, it moves you to the left corner and your hand kind of goes behind the little box
I'm sorry.
that's recording. And so I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was just a quick comment about the wording of that, and I've heard several terms. It's just in my mind that to revocation or to revoke a certificate or certification sounds like a consequence of serious actions, a breach of ethics, or some sort of conduct on the job that, or something serious. Not turning in CEUs or documentation sounds more of a lapse. It's like, it's not as serious, but the effect is, you will lose your certification. But in my mind, revoking something sounds like a punishment or a penalty more than just, if you fail to do this, that's one thing. But if you do something that is serious, then it will be revoked. And then that sounds like something, and then you'll have to wait a while before you can reapply. But if they just don't turn in documentation or something and it lapses, I'm thinking that sounds more like, okay, well, if you get it together and you can, make up the lost time or submit what we need, then you should be able to get it back. So I'm not trying to nitpick the terminology, but that's what I envision when I hear that word revoke. It sounds like a penalty. So I'm just putting it out there.
I'm talking to a bunch of interpreters in this room,
Languages are life.
Understandable, right?
Do y'all want to replace revoked with lapsed or will lapse?
now I prefer will expire. Just my suggestion.
Okay, is everybody good with putting in there will expire? Jasmine, if you can scratch out, if you can strike be revoked. And then put in expire. And I thought, saw everybody's thumb on that one. Yeah, thumbs for expire. And the section 14 about applying again, y'all want to send this out of the committee to the ICB for further development? Walker, okay. If you can highlight section 14 can apply again. And yeah, highlight, and then after that, put referred out of committee to ICB for development. All right, and the last sentence that talks about exceptions. I can't remember if we decided on that already.
Yes, I think we did.
Okay, we
As
did.
is. Yes.
Okay. All right. So that is,
So this is Jana, if I can just speak up
12.
for a second, if that particular sentence remains in 12, for the sake of this submission, we are gonna have to rename ICB, so we could just take it out altogether because you can't refer to an entity that does not yet exist. So exemptions when required or exceptions when requirements are not met will be determined on a case-by-case basis and must be received there. I mean, we could just say it like that, where we're not even saying who's gonna do it yet. It's just general language about that it's gonna be determined on a case-by-case basis.
all right, y'all go with taking out ICB? Okay. All righty, that is section 12.
Getting there, Lynn. getting there.
Time is almost 6 o'clock. We have,
Yeah, at 6:15, remember.
we got 18 minutes.
Well, 15 is done, in my opinion. I don't know about you
All right,
guys. but
15, let's go to 15.
15, we're on 13, right? Oh, no.
Yeah, but 15 is one of the ones in red.
Right.
Does BEI have code of professional conduct?
Jasmine just looked, they adopted already.
Okay. Are y'all good with those two being the standards of professional conduct?
Or interpreters working in educational settings.
Yes.
Yes.
There's some conflicts between these two.
I was wondering, like, do they conflict each other or?
Generally where?
I mean, I don't have, I'm sorry, you've stumped me, but I know that there are,
Sorry.
and other duties. Other duties of interpreters working in educational settings, being part of an educational team, being a related service provider conflicts with some of RID's code of ethics that does not have them as a related service provider. So
That was
there's that.
Too, with adopting both, would there be ever any, confusion? What would you guys think about only using NAIE? Because a certified interpreter is required to follow RID anyway for their certification. But to work in education, if we get real specific and say you're also now additionally required to follow NAIE for this environment, that could be an approach. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I like that idea. I think NAIE's Educational Code of Ethics is top drawer. And I have been in situations where RID's Code of Ethics directly conflict with what is expected of someone in an educational setting. So, and if you keep both, then you are certified up by both, for example, then you're forced to side with one or the other at some point when a sticky wicket comes along.
Any other thoughts on removing RID from this section?
Walker says, I think that we can remove that, or we can change it to must comply with one of the following. Either way, not both, basically, you pick one.
I think you should pick one. I think there's too many people who are reading that don't know what we know. You know, a school system or principal, administrator, that type of thing, that they're not going to understand. I don't think the difference between the two.
This is Earl. My thought is basically, yeah, if we remove the RID Code of Professional Conduct, based on the qualifications for being an interpreter in an educational setting, most of the standards we've set up would already include that anyway. They would have to adhere to it, just like Jana said. So now that they're in a more specific setting, then the NIE Code of Ethics would then take priority. They've already got RID's Code of Professional Conduct in the back of their mind because they're functioning as an interpreter anyway. But then having this one to govern specific educational circumstances would probably be better, and it would simplify this section, I think.
All right, so let's go back to the original question since we have, I think, more people leaning toward removing RID. Thumbs up if you're okay with removing RID from this section. Walker. Removing RID. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I have,
I missed it. Okay, so we'll remove the RID out of section 15. Okay, we have finished all of the items in red. Do we want to go to any that are in black?
Is exemptions going off? Did I miss what y'all were just talking about? I'm sorry.
Exemptions.
16.
Exemptions is on the list. Is in
That's
red.
So I guess that's got you. So 16 really is 10 exemptions, restrictions. That's kind of the same, looks like the same language or similar language. I did make a note. We can't restrict volunteers by law. Like the LCD statute says that we cannot, that any of these codes and laws does not apply to a volunteer. Someone who is not getting paid in a situation. It's always been there. So, I mean, those of you who helped write that law a long time ago, that's not a new change. It's always said that. But it does say that. Yeah. I quoted it on the side. We are required to exempt interpreters of religious services or those interpreting on a voluntary basis without compensation from the requirement of registration.
So Mama.
This is Leslie,
Mama
then we don't
doesn't
need
have to
this.
be registered when she's interpreting for her child, if she's volunteering to.
right.
What?
Right. Leslie.
This is Leslie. If it's already in the law, then why have this section at all?
I think exemptions just meant Okay, so first of all, I don't know. I mean, we kind of copied an outline from another state. So we kind of walked in knowing not all the sections would be applicable. So this one may just need to come out altogether. But in the overall rule of interpreters, we would probably list that there, where volunteers are religious interpreters, that they are the exemptions of everything else on here. But that has nothing to do with education specifically. That would probably need to move to its own article or chapter. I know, Denise, will see.
A little bit scary, huh? A little bit scary.
No. Can we
Again,
write an exemption that volunteers can't be used?
right, because we're not gonna depend on common sense about them.
And I would
getting there.
imagine the spirit of that language, is for someone who's just volunteering, not in a school system, not as an employee. They're just volunteering to help someone or, support someone, and they're providing some sign language interpreting for them in the moment, or church interpreters, right? I don't think the spirit was meant to say in an education environment or an employee of any kind of like official capacity. Well, I guess they would no longer be volunteers because they're employees. They would be getting paid for it. You know what I mean? But I guess they're just trying to say you don't have to be walking around, I don't know. I didn't write it. That was 40 years ago or however long.
That's just really cringeworthy, because I can picture particularly some rural areas that do not have employees asking the lovely church lady, wife of the dentist who took ASL 1, whatever, to come volunteer in the school. That
Right.
was strangely specific. And then there's all bets are off. There's no holds barred at that point. They can do anything, and there's no retaliation.
That could be something that you all guys bring to the board's awareness, and when they do another amendment, see if you can get it taken out. But obviously until that's taken out of the law, we're not gonna be able to put that in there.
But aren't we going to the legislature anyway to put in the ICB?
Correct. So there
So-
could be an opportunity there to fix it.
All right,
But this will be done before that, so we'll still have to leave it out for the time being. We'd have to make the
Right.
adjustment later.
but once the law changes, it's got to come be applied into this anyway.
Anyway.
Okay, so over on the side, if you'll write like in response to yours, consider removing or just remove volunteering as an exemption when the law is redone. So do we need verbiage for 16?
Isn't that what we already did up higher?
For restrictions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I think 16 can just jettison.
It can move to an article. Not that language, just the section itself can move to an article. Because it's not related to education. We already have exemptions and limitations in that other section 10. Right? So yes, I would be agreeing with you, Denise. I don't know if I said it right.
Okay, y'all good with that moving to a new article? I would like to discuss something else. Are y'all good with everything that was in red that we've checked them all? On my list, I got check marks by all of them. Well, let me check. 16. And I want to discuss it now in our at least 6 minutes we have left in committee of the whole, just because it would foster, it fosters open discussion without having to get into a motion. There was some talk about implementation, and I think that's up on the top. Jasmine, if you can scroll to the top. We have not addressed grandfathering and date of implementation. That's okay, Leslie. If we had some thoughts on that. Recommendations from this committee. It's not really standards, but do you want to propose anything on date of implementation or that G word? Denise.
Can grandfathering be moved to an article? And let this new document have a fresh start all on its own?
So grandfathering, I think would be hard to move to an article because you would have to consider each group. So, what are the stipulations for, unless it was across the board that the same thing applies to educational interpreters or anybody else in every other setting. Otherwise you'd need it to have its own. I think that an implementation date, in here would be important. I think that's a big question that people are asking is when do they have to have this new standard by? So whether you're considering grandfathering, meaning there are some people that it'll never apply to, which is the way I would define that are because they already have XYZ, or you're putting an implementation date and saying everyone has to have it by this point in the future. I do feel like at least for educational interpreters, it would need to go here. And then the other groups, we could continue talking about that a little bit later. Because that date may not be the same in my mind.
Right.
So let me ask the general question because the clock is ticking away. Just as a general question, do you want, no matter if you've been working for 10 years or 30 years in the educational system, that at some point, whatever day that's going to be, that you have to have all these minimum qualifications met?
This is Natasha. I mean, if they haven't met any requirements, they should not be in the field. They should have something.
Well, I think you're referring to people who have what the state now allows. So they may have a 3.2 with no education, formal education, but they've been doing this for 30 years. Now, let's hope after 30 years, they don't still have a 3.2, but you see what I'm saying? Like, so if you have people, maybe they have a 4.0, but they don't have a degree, but they've been doing this for 25 years. Do those people, that would be where you'd have to consider a grandfather clause. If or do you say, no, everybody has to do it, no matter what, but
if they have a
it's a
4.0, then they have the RID that recognize, they're not already certified, but they're recognized by RID.
not anymore.
Not anymore.
Oh,
That's gone. So they would have to go, they'd have to go get whatever we said, an associate's degree.
60 hours. Well, it's 60 hours.
So but back to your question, I don't know if you want to.
But then they have that alternative pathway that they can apply.
That is exactly that.
But you still have to have an educational foundation, don't you? Isn't that one of the requirements?
You have to have hours if you have proof of hours.
Right, but I'm just saying, I mean, I'm just trying to I'm thinking about everybody. So if you have somebody who right now, the state's never required that you had more than a high school diploma. You have somebody who has zero college
No
hours.
diploma. Okay.
zero college hours, has a 4.0, 4.5 EIPA, they've been working for 25 years in the school system, are they now required to go to school in order to keep working?
Community hours, not school hours. So they have proof that they've done so many hours in the community.
But that's not what y'all, how you wrote it.
Right.
This says college credit hours.
Unless there's an alternate pathway.
Yeah, add that in
That's-
there.
That would be
Substitution.
this, that would be this thing right here.
And where does alternate pathway go in this document?
It
What
could-
section?
It could go maybe in any section. I will tell you, like the state, for example, like has clear language on like this type of work substitutes for a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
6:15.
Go ahead, sorry.
I just said it's 6:15. This is Walker,
Oh, thank you.
being the timekeeper.
Remind me again at 6:20.
See, Earl's comment, the grandfather clock is always ticking.
So there needs to be some real thought given to alternative pathways, which I don't think we're going to do in 5 minutes. I mean, do y'all have thoughts on date of implementation?
I do have something to throw out. So if we implement it, where's the who reinforces it? So we can say start tomorrow, but we need something set up to enforce it.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not gonna come here. Okay, but I mean, I'm just trying to, just to help us stay focused, that wouldn't go in that piece. You would have, like, yes, you're absolutely right. Like, we have to be able to do that, but for the sake of this document, you just need to say when it needs to go into effect. We'll figure out the rest of that as we continue to work forward. Yeah, you just need to decide though, is there an alternative pathway? Is there a grandfather clause? Is there a date in the future? You know, that's kind of what has to come in here now, because otherwise that goes into effect August 1st. Unless you say otherwise. It'll go into effect as written. Not August.
Okay,
1st,
so
not
here's the
August 1st. I'm
question.
sorry, I'm confusing myself with the law. It'll be sometime in April. And this gets up, so.
Okay, so that's going to be our question right now. Are y'all good with implementation being in April?
No, 2024?
Yes.
No, I'm not good with that.
Okay, December 31st, 2024, or maybe it should just say in 2024. In 2024? Implementation in 2024. All right, I see some real questions. What about 2025?
I can live with that better.
And
I
if
think you're gonna have people completely panicked if you say next year.
Right. And what you can do also is that the new rule applies to any new people coming in, but only those who currently hold a state certification, it goes into effect in 2025 or something. Like, you could definitely say that if you wanted to say, well, at least the new people come in do have to meet this qualification standard. That's an option as well.
Okay, so for those who are currently certified, so if you're not certified, then the clock is really ticking loudly. But if you have certification through LDOE, what do you want the implementation date to be for the new standards? December 31 of 2025?
No, July, new fiscal year, starts a school year, the whole shebang.
All right, so date of implementation, those currently certified, July 1,
2025.
how do y'all,
It can say, it can say current holders of the Louisiana Department of Education state, qualified interpreter must meet the minimum guidelines outlined in this document by July, it'll just be a line, most likely in section 3 and section 4, maybe not. Is it just qualified? But anyway, that's where I would think the implementation date needs to go.
okay, we really need to hurry. So date of implementation, those currently certified, July 1, 2025. And alternate pathways, is it alternative
Yeah.
pathways to be,
Determined by ICB, or to be determined.
And then, is that enough? Is that enough time? That's a year and a half.
Okay. And is that an agreement, just so I'm clear from my notes, that's an agreement by the committee that there should be an alternative pathway?
There
It needs
is,
to be considered or
Okay.
just to be determined. What or if?
What or if?
Y'all go with that? What or if? Alternative pathways?
Yes.
And then what do you want data? of
Walker here at
implementation?
6:20.
Thank you, sir. For those who are currently not certified, what do you want date of implementation?
July 1, 2024.
So all new incoming. so to
Yeah.
speak, Yeah. July.
Stop the bleed.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because it will technically go into effect in April, but that'll give us some time to clean up a couple of administrative pieces too.
All right, everybody in agreement to those who are coming in who are new? And is it currently, yeah, coming in new? Does that also mean those not yet certified? Who may have been working for 25 years already?
Yeah. 'Cause
All right.
Shame on them.
Yep, they
Yeah.
have 30 years.
You know?
Oh, there's a plenty of them not on the registry. Plenty.
Right. Okay. All right, everybody in agreement to that? New? You got to be certified by July 1, 2024, according to these.
And that's state Louisiana Department of Education you're talking about. I mean, that's not, just to be clear, right? I'm just thinking of the people at home, making sure we're all speaking the same language. So
Yes.
educational interpreters who are trying to work and are currently working, who do not have a state of department education certificate are required to have one by July 1st of this year or this coming year. Any new ones coming in. People who currently have one but don't meet the minimum requirements have until December or July 1st of 25,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
That gives the current workers 4 years in a provisional and the incoming 3.
Unless they have no college at all, then they don't meet that 30 hours unless we do an alternative pathway for the educational section. So
Right.
that needs to be addressed quickly, the alternative pathways.
Lynn, it's 6:21.
Thank you.
I mean, y'all have another meeting on next Wednesday. Now, it only has one agenda item. Do you want to make it 2? I mean, that is an option where this alternative pathway. No, so because what I could do is I can share with language with you of, definitely RID, what are their alternative pathways, all of those, even if they don't exist anymore, what were they? Also, like I said, the state does have some language. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, they have some very clear civil service type of language of how many hours you need a full-time work experience to qualify for that. And then maybe that way it could be a quick vote, but then that way at least it's done.
All righty. So do y'all want to add another agenda item and talk about alternative pathways as a committee? Yes or no?
I feel like I know.
All right.
I feel like it's the one
So
thing
I'm going to ask another
ballot.
question because we got to come out and then we're going to make a couple of motions, but do y'all want to do that next week or do you want to go ahead and take a week off and come back in 2 weeks? Since we've added, if we're going to add another agenda item, do you want to come back in 2 weeks, which would be
the first.
the first? Or y'all want to just do it next week? I know Denise can't join us.
I can join you late and it sounds like it's going to extend, so.
Okay, then let's leave it next week and get it done. Oh, wait, we have LRID. Okay, busy week.
If you guys, I mean, my suggestion would be, I know we're gonna make some votes. My suggestion would be committee, go look at the documents, look at the emails, come ready to make a yes, no, and maybe hopefully, fingers crossed, it won't take too long because it's just that one topic.
And maybe we can get subcommittees to propose something. It goes faster when we do that. All right. Do I hear a motion that we come out of committee of the whole? Hands flying up everywhere.
Yes.
We'll do Denise and Leslie.
Yes,
You got
24.
that, Jasmine? All right, all in favor? Earl, Sam pass.
Aye.
Walker,
I,
Denise,
Yes.
Leslie,
Aye.
and Natasha.
Aye.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we accept the group consensus of changes that we have discussed today? Leslie and then Denise. So moved. Any discussion on it? We have 2 minutes for it. Discussion. I think we did it during, okay. Walker. All in favor, Walker.
I,
Earl,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Natasha.
Aye.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we add an agenda item to the October 25th meeting? Alternative pathways. We'll just use that as a generic title. Is there a motion for that? Walker,
Walker here, so moved.
got a second by Leslie? Any discussion on it? Seeing none, we'll vote. I'm gonna start over here. Natasha? Aye.
Aye.
Oh. Voicing for you.
Nice of you to interpret.
Leslie,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Earl,
Aye.
Walker.
I,
Okay, did I cover all the motions when we came out of committee of the whole?
Aye.
I believe so,
Um, Okay. I know we're gonna adjourn, just, do we have announcements on our agenda?
LCD meeting
Announcements.
is Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Louisiana State Capitol, Senate Room AB. There is also a live stream link that you can watch from the comfort of your own home. You may find that on LCD's website and Facebook page if you want to check that out.
Okay.
Sorry if I jumped the gun.
Any other announcements?
I'd like to make a quick one, really just a 30-second, very silent moment. We lost a real champion of the interpreting world this week, or this past week, who would have been on this committee, who had served on a countless number of committees. I just would love for us to just take a minute to honor and the contributions that Janie Powell has made to this world. And certainly the personal ones she made to me are immeasurable. So I just would love to just keep her name. And I intend to say the same thing on Friday, probably more eloquently at the LCD meeting. I just think that we've lost a real champion.
Agreed.
We could probably unofficially dedicate this document to her. We have 2 minutes left. We could take the next couple of minutes to talk about Janie. If anybody else wants to say anything else about Janie. Be our tribute to her.
I think Denise said it beautifully.
Mhm.
You may not have thought so, but I thought it was beautiful.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, any other announcements? At 6:29, we can entertain a motion to adjourn. We are having a debrief session right after this, so please stick around. It's just 6:30 to 7. to just talk about the work of the committee, what you thought about it, what we could do differently for the next committee that's going to be working. General thoughts about it. So it is 6:29. We could entertain a motion to adjourn. And when it turns to 6:30, then I just can announce adjournment.
There you go.
Leslie, did you move?
Yes.
Leslie moved to adjourn and Earl seconded. We don't need to discuss it. All in favor? We do have to vote.
Aye.
Hurry, the church bells ringing.
Yeah, the church bell is ringing at 6:30.
All right. I am moving to my phone for the debrief, just FYI, everybody.
Okay.